Hello all. Thank you so much for spending your time with us. This is great Wednesday. Today we'll be discussing why a product vision is critical to inspire change. Landon from First United Bank will give us insight into his team's passion behind the new app, Our Community, and how United Bank is encouraging people to connect, experience life together, and promote a sense of belonging in their communities. Leading into their values, First United Bank is taking a unique step to inspire others to spend life together. Here at Improving, we are continually growing. So here are our 16 locations. And our values are leaned towards conscious capitalism. So with that in mind, take it away, guys.
Thank you, Nate, and thank you to Improving for being a great partner. We share values when it comes to conscious capitalism. Being a great partner, and thanks for inviting me here to talk with you guys. So my name is Landon Whitlock. I'm a marketer turned product manager and been working as a product manager for a little over 2 years now. And I'm still not quite sure what an API is. So maybe someone could help me out with that.
I think that makes a lot of us here.
I say that slightly joking, but I've learned a lot in the past 2 years going from being a marketer and having a sales job to now working for a bank, managing the development of not just an app, but a social media app or a social networking app. So it's been a great experience and really enjoyed working with the team. Hope to share some insights that I've learned coming from a non-technical background and leading a unique effort for a bank.
Hello, everyone. My name is Eric Akbani. I'm the UX designer with Improving. Been with Improving for a little over a year now. Have UX design experience that's going on 3 years. And I think I'm creeping up to like 12 years of background in customer service experience, like business ownership, and software engineering from my previous lifetime. And when I'm not doing this, I'm out hiking, traveling, or teaching other people about UX. But I'm pretty boring compared to Chris, so I'll let him talk about himself.
No, I love that, Eric. So my name is Chris McGinnis. I've been at Improving now for 13 years. I'm a principal consultant there. I've been a full stack developer for 16 years. And one of the things I like to bring to all the teams I work on is just a strong empathy for the user and being that glue between UX like Eric and the developing team. So a little bit about me personally. I like to brew coffee. I love going to events. So just over the weekend, we saw a wonderful orchestra and ballet performance in Fort Worth. So things like that. And I love playing board games. And so I think that's enough about me. Nick, take it away.
Hey, so hi, I'm Nick Houlay, and I've been with Improving going on 8 years. It's been an exciting, fun journey. Agile coach, Scrum Master here. I started up in the ranks of software development. I enjoyed with my time with the startup company where really learned extreme programming and having an agile mindset in Scrum before I even knew what it was about. And then went into project management or PMO, program project management. And then I saw a Scrum team having fun again. And ever since then, never looked back, right? So I love, when I'm not working right, I love pool time. I love pickleball. Pickleball is the latest thing. Pickleball battles whenever I can find them. And what I really do enjoy, though, is helping organizations adopt Agile, a change of mindset, and then also helping teams become more effective at Scrum. All right, so I'll throw it back to Landon.
Awesome. Thanks, Nick. So I'm really excited and anxious to get into the meat of our topic. But first, I think it's really helpful to set some context around the vision itself for this project to kind of give you guys a framework for all the discussion we'll have and all the lessons we've learned along the way with kind of the diverse group we had working on a unique project. So the first thing that I think is helpful to understand is why we're developing a social networking app and what the mission was, right? So First United Bank we really pride ourselves in being a community bank. And what that means is not just that we care about our communities and that we sponsor different groups and a sports team sign, a scoreboard or whatever. But what it means is that we really care about the communities in which we exist. It's not just a contributor to our success, but it's actually what success means. It's one of the end goals of being a community bank. You want to see your community thrive. It's at the heart of the leaders all the way down to the retail staff at our banks. Is we have this passion on looking at communities that we've been a part of and seeing that they've been improved because we're there, right? Being a part of that community growth. And so the reason I think we can lean into that is because our mission as an organization is to help inspire and empower others to spend life wisely. So that's kind of a big phrase, right? And in fact, a lot of our marketing has been attempting to break that down and try to understand, what does that mission even mean to help people spend life wisely, right? Because those are big phrases. And what it really means, if I had to put it in my own words, it's intentionally spending the limited resources you have, especially your time, in a way that aligns with your goals, right? So how do you spend your time here on earth in a positive way that aligns with your goals and your values, right? And that's what we want at the core of who we are. We are a Spend Life Wisely organization that happens to be in banking and now is doing a social media app. So we've got leaders that really want to do good, want to see an impact. And, that's where conscious capitalism comes in and where our partnership with Improving comes in, right? What a great place to start. Like if we paused here and just left it at that, I think there's a great lesson there on join teams that care about purpose, join teams that are as excited about making a difference and loving and impacting the world as much as you, and find partners that do the same, right? So that's a little brief history on who we are. But getting into our community, this app that we launched, our leader, our CEO, before I even got started, had some conversations that exposed a problem and an opportunity to him, which is the reason we're sitting here today talking about our community. And one of those stories that I think was especially powerful was when he was talking with a lady in a community that had lived there for 15 years. And by all measures of the word, if you looked at her resume, right, or if you looked at her bio, you would have said, this lady is involved. She feels a sense of belonging. She had joined several groups. She had been a part of volunteering. What this lady told our CEO, though, is, I've been here 15 years. I've been a part of this organization for many of those years. And I still don't find a sense of belonging in my community. I still don't feel a part of it. And we thought, man, how powerful. And I wasn't there for that conversation, but even hearing that, how powerful is that we have people that live places for 15 years and have a sense of loneliness. The other thing was, on a lighter note, he's very involved in the communities that we're a part of. And he noticed an event that took place that was an awesome event, but he heard several different stakeholders within the community, the fire department, the police department, the business owners, and the community members, all discussing how we weren't really on the same page. We didn't know about this event, or, wow, if we would have known about this, we could have partnered and done even better. So that's kind of number two. One, starts with a sense of belonging, but two, how can we improve that communication? And three, just the importance of connection when it comes to accomplishing our own goals in life, right? Greg says something that I really like. It's that we do some of our best things with other people, right? When we have that accountability and that connection. So how can we improve that connectivity within a community? And so it's really cool. I think a theme here, is leaders that are passionate about solving problems first, right? Not passionate about one specific solution, but passionate about solving problems. So where we're at now, and then we'll start, getting into the meat of the conversation, is we have beta tested, piloted our app for 8 months now, and we're at an exciting time. 12 days ago, we launched in our first community, other than our pilot test in the Texoma region. We've launched the app in Plano, Frisco, and McKinney, and I've seen a lot of people, not just number of users has gone up, and that's been exciting, but my favorite part is getting feedback, comments. I don't care how it comes about, getting comments where you see the passion, right? That's the most exciting part for me. And so We're choosing problems to solve on. We validated the idea. I'll tell two really fast stories, and then we'll jump in. One is we had a coffee shop. A DJ had a history of coming to this coffee shop every month and doing a coffee and connect type event but he would play music at it. And we heard about this event. We encouraged them to put it on our community. He did. One of our team members actually went to this event, and they thought, wow, this is a great event. It was a packed house, right? People were having to pull up chairs, standing room. It was by all means, a really successful event. What was exciting is the DJ, the person that hosted the event, came and found our team member, Michaela, who does a lot of our marketing, has done an awesome job, and said, Michaela, we've done this event for months now, and it's been our close group of friends. And the only thing that I can think of that was different is we put our event on the app. And so he was elated and he was pumped about the app. And that's to me, a great success story. Another one would be a lady who had no Facebook following, but published a pottery workshop, trying to get at least 6 people to start a pottery workshop in Denison. She published on the app with no previous following, no previous budget. She wasn't spending ad dollars through our community. It just was publishing the event on our community. She got so much response on Facebook. She had 8 people respond. On our community, had 42 people respond, right? She had so much success and so much interest. She's now started a monthly pottery workshop, which I think is a really cool. So 2 really cool wins, I think, for not just the app, but for our mission in general. And so,
Yeah, quick
Hey, Landon.
question for you, Landon, before you move on to the next part. How important would you say vision alignment from the top of the organization down is to actually realizing your vision?
Oh, that's an awesome question. And it's an easy answer, easy to say the answer, not easy to do the answer. And I think we can break that down just really quickly, fast. To sometimes we don't realize the challenges we face, right? We say vision should be the same top down, but we don't ever break down to see what obstacles are there in that. And yes, it's incredibly important that the person, from the top, the CEO, the product managers, the developers that are in the weeds and actually building, doing the hard work and actually building, that they all are on the same page, right? But one thing that I think will be highlighted here is it's not just about a game of telephone, right? That's one factor, is just communication. But the other factor is we all have different skill sets. We all have different stories. We all have different perspectives, right? And it's that age-old problem of in school, you write a paper and you think everyone knows what you mean, right? You assume everyone knows what you mean, but it's because you're looking at it through your lens. And so, yes, it's incredibly important and something that I think we'll jump into some of those challenges of passing that vision down. But even a new framework or a new word picture that I think would even be better than passing a vision down would be, how can you create teams that all surround that vision, right? So this vision isn't passed down when you're not playing a game of telephone, but you actually open up the strategy to everyone on the team and you allow them to contribute to the vision itself, right? Because if you've already decided a vision you're going to build and you want people just to develop it, people start like that. I don't think it ends up being very successful though. But to me, the teams that have been successful, and one reason we've been successful is because we have attempted to open up the vision and allow it to be a collaborative effort and not just here's our solution, now go build it. But we have this problem statement and we all surround ourselves saying there are some key aspects of this vision, but then there are also a lot of unknowns and a lot of room to collaborate and tweak. So,
that was a good question, Chris, and that transitions us into one of the challenges, right? Which was, so how do we execute on that vision, right? And I think one of the, we always hear from Scrum, right? The product owner is single wringable neck, right? Or product manager, or the person who is bringing the challenge to the Scrum team, right? It's true that the product owner does relay a product vision. And I'd like to challenge Scrum teams to also lean into helping collaborate and building what that vision can be, right? It's to partner with your product owner and to participate, right? And so when we talk about the execution of executing on a product vision, right? So Landon, as you could tell, Landon is very passionate. I remember when I first sat down with him and he explained a little bit of that. I was already fired up about, one, I'm always fired up about software, but number two, it reaching to a community, because after the pandemic, right? And Landon and I talked about this, was we need a sense of belonging. We need a community to connect with. And a lot of these other social network apps, kind of are hard to, even if you're a part of one, it's hard to reach each other, right? But as we start talking about, the execution of that, right? Product owners convey a vision for a product, right? One of my first questions I asked Landon was, hey, Landon, by the way, how did you know which market to start with? I think Durant, was that one of the first places that you started? Why that place?
Yeah, great question. And I think it hits on a really important theme for our project. We chose Durant and surrounding cities as well, because that's where our team was located. That's where our headquarters were. That's where we had relationships, right? So what we've been really intentional about is developing an app that creates value, right? I think a lot of times we focus on scale before we focus on impact. And so we have a leader who's continued to remind us that it's about impact, right? The scale will come, but it's about impact first. And in order to do that, you do have to slow down in a sense of the word. You do have to slow down. And in this case, we had surveys, we had user testing sessions, but the most valuable thing that I think was the early conversations, the 2-hour lunches, and I'm not exaggerating, 2-hour lunches with one person, listening to why an events app would help them and how an events app could help them, create a community with it around their business or around their organization. So we started in Durant, but we started because we had those relationships, and it allowed us to have these conversations to really get at the heart of what people are wanting, and to listen to people's voices, right? To have lunch with them, build relationships with them, and have that common ground of understanding the community that we were a part of. So it was a great move, and it has really helped us. We're still leaning on some of those early conversations when we make product decisions.
So I want to chime in for just a quick second, Landon, because one of the things that I want to also kind of dive into and talk about a little bit is when we were brought on to the team, like one of your jobs as a product owner is to conveying the vision to like the public and getting them to understand like what you're trying to go for. Usually they're like, they don't understand it at like, they'll understand it from a 10,000 foot level. But when you have to start getting into the weeds of like, hey, now how do we break this down into individual like user journeys and stories, and how do we start executing on deliverables, you got to convey that to your team. So I'm assuming that the process for going about that is very different than it is to the public. So just talk to me about like how you did that with us, because like when you and I came in together, like we sat down and we were like hashing it out for like an hour about like, hey, this is where we're going and what we're doing. And I'm sure you had those conversations with, many other team members along the way as well, before you got to like Nick eventually. And then we kind of went from there. Yeah,
that's a great question. So to answer the question, how do you convey that vision to the public? And the context would be really early on in the phase, right? When you're validating ideas, validating features, how do you convey that vision to the public to inspire that collaboration, versus how do you start communicating that to your development teams to start building on that? And I would say understanding what phase you're in is really important, right? Sometimes you can start becoming a solution focused instead of an opportunity focused team. In other words, you quickly skip from they said they wanted to create more community. Creating a ticketing platform or creating a posting platform would do that. So they would love this posting platform. Now, how do we create a great posting platform? And you've like just skipped over like 20 different, if not more, assumptions that are huge assumptions. So I'd say understanding where you're at in the process and outlining those assumptions, great tidbit, book, full disclosure, I haven't even read the full thing, but a great book that I've been working through is Continuous Discovery Habits. So a really great resource to hit on this topic of becoming an opportunity-focused product team. But I would say a quick tidbit on the public side would be, don't ask for more feedback than the user's able to provide, right? A lot of times you want someone to validate a full idea or a very specific idea, and they can't do that. You as the product team and as the product manager and as the UX designer, you have thought about this 20 times as much as this user has. So you can't always give them a decision and have them make it and outsource your job, right? You can't outsource your job to the customer. That doesn't mean you don't get feedback. And that there is the distinction between becoming research focused, but not outsourcing your job, right? So in other words, you may have a user. Here's a really good instance. We did user testing, but instead of doing our own product, we did competitors' products because we want to understand how are users using our competitors' products. What users said verbally was, oh, this is easy. I like this. What we saw, their behaviors were they were clicking, they were jumping back and forth. They were even asking questions, right? So as we're discussing with community members, we have to provide some room for interpretation and for validating large level assumptions instead of jumping right into, is this a good idea or not, right? If you're at that phase where you can assess whether an idea is good or not, then great, do that. But I think a lot of times we jump into that a little too early. And for the product team, I think it's a different challenge and similar but different. Similar because there's someone coming in with potentially less, they've thought less about the certain problem than you have. But it's similar because as product managers, as a non-technical person, I'm thinking around principles and concepts and frameworks and end results, right? And developers are thinking, okay, but it has to be developed, right? Yeah, that's great, but we still have to, it's where the rubber meets the road, right? Can we actually accomplish,
Right.
solve this problem? And therein, I think, lies a lot of the not just frustration, but the difficulties, right? And it's a good difficulty, but it's still a difficulty when you have non-technical people and vision-focused people working with executors. It's that I'm thinking through concepts and they're wanting to rush me in to development. And what I think is important here is that you each need to go 3/4 of the way, as I heard someone say, right? The product manager needs to get a little bit more comfortable staking some claims, right? Some solution claims. And I believe the developers, the technical team also needs to get a little bit more comfortable with talking through concepts before they get into technical details, right? So you have to start bargaining on which technical details are most important and which ones do we need to talk about and which ones can we delay, right? And so that's kind of our approach to solve.
Yeah.
I'll jump in there because that kind of touches on some of that communication between the different roles on the team, right? Like from a dev perspective, from a UX perspective, and from a product perspective, you have to collaborate to take that vision, which is usually a giant scale, right? Like we're talking about a social media app for events, right? Like that is mind-bogglingly big from a product vision idea. So how do you take that and you boil it down to something you can actually deliver in a short period of time? And that's where that collaboration between the teams comes in, right? Start with that vision and then see if you can break it down into incremental pieces that you can deliver in small chunks here and there.
Yeah,
right.
That's really good. If I could add one thing to that, it's something that I've learned. And it's that you want to make sure your vision is well thought out, but don't wait till it's perfect to bring to your product team because, again, you want them to become collaborators. You want them in early on that vision, but also a lot of times that product vision is enhanced and tweaked when you get people on board because Chris, when you say a social media event-based app is a huge problem, you're right. But what I think I've found is that to a non-technical person, you don't realize the true cost and the true time and the true scale of certain solutions. So bringing that to them early helps you start realizing how focused do I need to become. And their questions they ask you will actually help you start focusing. So, if I said, Chris, build us an event, combine Eventbrite, Facebook, and Meetup all in one app, and let's start there. You're going, no. Here's the true scale of this. Here's how much focus. And then you start that negotiation, right, in a good way, because we're both collaborating on solving the same mission. But we just
actually, all I have to do is just type that into Chat GPT and it'll just generate the app for us now, right? Yeah.
So
we talked.
A question.
Yeah, let's move on to the next challenge. Oh, I'm sorry. Are you going to ask me something?
Yeah. If you don't mind, I'll ask you one question. You can skip over it quickly if you want. But what are some challenges you faced when collaborating with non-technical people, right? So I kind of give you my perspective on the side, but I'm curious what challenges you would highlight here.
Yeah, that's the hardest thing is always language, right? From a development standpoint, I have my own set of language for describing a problem or working through a problem. You might talk about back-end pieces or database or performance, things like this. A lot of that doesn't matter to the business, right? Like the business concepts are what really matter, and the business language is what matters. And so bridging that divide is the most challenging part of our job, is describing the problems that developers face in a business-focused language set. It's not easy, it's something you learn over time, but as you work on it and as you focus on it, you will get better.
That's good.
I think we did have maybe just one question, is how did you narrow down the beachhead market? I like how that was phrased, to people with specific type of events, or just anyone that hosted events? And did you focus on event host versus event attendees first, I guess?
Yeah, I'll answer the second one. I think is a really good question. We kind of have a chicken and egg problem because we're a platform, a social platform. We need, there's a lot of network effects, and especially when it comes to organizers adding events and then users coming on and finding those events too. This is where we had an early pivot, and where this pilot test in a community where we felt really comfortable and had relationships really helped. We started focusing on organizers, and they were really excited about the app. And I think genuinely, right? But when it came to executing, I ran into the same problem when I added an event too for our organization. Is someone asked me, did you add this to our community? And I felt like I had betrayed our app, because it just hit me, oh my goodness, no, I didn't, right? So it's this habit, and behaviors are really difficult to change, right, on consumers. So with organizers, that was especially the case. What we did is we pivoted. We started going after users, and we realized organizers, whenever they realized they had use for the app themselves, they started jumping on and adding events too. So we started helping out, filling in the gaps, adding events ourselves, focusing all on users. And that I think was a big strategy shift for us. So I think what I was going to say. Yeah, no. So I think that was part of the challenge, right? Was the team leaning into this vision, right? Do we all have the shared or same understanding of what that vision is? And I think when we talk about some behaviors at the end, is when we have the same shared understanding of what we're trying to accomplish, what the outcome is, the value that we're trying to produce, is when together as a team, we become powerful, right? Let's see. So let's transition to are y'all okay with transition to the next topic? We good? So the next one was, so we noticed together as a team, right? So we were trying to solve quite a few challenges that we had, right? We wanted to start solving some of the features, right?
I think one of the things, and Nate, if you wouldn't mind hitting the next slide, right? One of the very first things that I think is very important is that the team has a good understanding of what the product owner is conveying, right? So when I first came aboard, I sat down with Landon. He expressed his vision for it. I connected with it. And then as I started building relationships on the team, so a lot of the intangibles as a Scrum Master is building relationships, right? Landon talked about that at the very beginning, building relationships, right? It's very important. What I started to notice is, are we all on the same page with what this product vision has to offer and what we're trying to build, right? So are we all speaking the same language when it comes to a release, right? When are we going to release to Collin County? Oh, and by the way, what features did we agree on that are high priority? And number 3 is, are we all talking the same language, right? So
Actually, I want to
go
actually
ahead.
talk about that for just a quick second, Nick. Like
Go
for
for it.
me and Chris should give just a little bit of background, and then we'll loop it back to you. But
Yep.
you know, when like the pre-Nick era, I want to, like, one of the things that we had with Landon was we had like ideas about where we were going, but sometimes we would have things that would kind of shift along the way, and we'd have to reprioritize things, and we weren't all speaking the same language at times as well. Like, we can be honest and admit that. But like, and we were using like a couple of different tools. I believe we were using Trello, and we had like 4 different Trello boards at one time, and we can talk about the tools in like a little bit. But definitely like having the, bringing in, like we had been talking about having a Scrum Master to come in and kind of organize things a little bit and help us with like, this more solidifying of like the team going forward. And Nick, I'm sorry, Chris, you can kind of like, chime in this a little bit about your experience and like why it was so important to have like Landon and Nick and all of us like all together and talking, and then getting into the release and roadmap.
Yeah, having Nick come on board really opened up the communication channels, right? Like none of us were necessarily in a hole by ourselves, isolated. We were
Right.
definitely communicating before, but Nick took it to a whole new level and just increasing that communication.
Like night and day.
It was night and day.
Total
for
difference.
sure.
You guys were tough.
Right.
But I did want to jump back to one of the points you made earlier about when we were in Trello, we had multiple boards. I think that happens on a lot of teams, a lot of the teams I've seen. And a lot of the reason for that comes down to signal versus noise, right? As you progress as a team, you start throwing all your notes into your product backlog, and that product backlog just keeps growing and growing until you just can't quite see over it. And sometimes it helps to do what Nick did, which is start us off on a clean sheet of paper and say, what does the next 3 months look like? What does the next 6 months look like? Don't go back to the product backlog and try to organize all that. Start with a clean sheet. Just tell me what you want. Like, let's talk it through. So Nick, do you want to talk us through that procedure and why you went that way?
Yeah, no. That's a good point, right? So we have this awesome vision, right? And I knew that with all the skill sets that we had on the team, I think the team was about 10 or 11, something like that. Some people were still on PTO and coming in, but I said, well, there's never really a good time, but we got to do this. And I explained it to Landon before I said, hey, this is the path that I want to take. This has been a successful event in my prior clients, is basically getting everyone on the same page. When we talk about vision, Nate, I don't think you can zoom in, which is completely fine. But up in the top left-hand corner, you see the onion that kind of looks like the planning onion, right? Well, we already had a vision, but when you start boiling it down, what are we going to execute on, right? We have so many directions. We have so many thoughts. We have a lot of passion about what we do. We have UX that has a passion. Developers have a passion. full stack, front end, back end. Then you have the product owner's passion, right? And so as a scrum master, right, I'm trying to bring everybody together, glue, and say, team, let's confront reality. Where are we at today? Let's let go of the past, right? Because the past can make us stumble a lot, right? So if we talk about let's take inventory today and how do we move forward, right? Incrementally, improving incrementally. So as a team, we confronted reality. And I think that is one of the trust behaviors together we did. Now, it wasn't perfect. It really wasn't pretty. If you look at the picture, that is one messy, ugly looking picture. But one of those other quadrants is the risk wall, right? What's the probability of something happening, and what is its impact? What are we missing? What do we need? Is it a certain skill set that we need, right? Take an inventory of what we have. Do we have the right people on board? But I think it started with me, which was, do we have a vision? Well, Landon answered that, right? And then number 2 was, do we have the right team, right? So going through all of this, we did backlog prioritization. We focused on high valued items with high quality, scalability. Oh, and by the way, as a Scrum Master, right, I'm going to teach you a little bit about the Scrum framework, but most importantly, right, Agile, 4 values and 12 principles, change of mindset. And I think that's key for any team wanting to be successful, is having a change in mindset to help execute on a vision. I think that's very important.
Yeah, I mean, one of the first things you did with us was you sat us all down and put us through that PowerPoint, like boot camp all over again.
Was it a PowerPoint? I don't remember.
I believe it was. I think
sure
it was.
It was a short.
It was pretty short, but it was basically like, hey, just a reminder. This is what we're all about. And I thought that was like really good, because I think sometimes people get so caught up in their work that they forget about like what the core of like delivering good work is, especially with Agile, with those concepts right there. So I think it was good. I think every team should do it at least once.
Yeah, if anybody knows me, like coming up from a software development background, I hate meetings.
So Nick taught us to hate meetings.
Yeah, so we don't have meetings, or we don't have ceremonies anymore, right? That's stuff in the past. Now we have exciting events, right? What are we talking about today? Landon, he'll pull us in. What are we brainstorming today, guys? You know, This is what the future can be for this product. And I think that is so inspiring. And if you talk about, assessing the team, assessing the product, is the team excited about this product? All right. Are we excited about producing software? Because I remember being a software developer, which was like ancient history, about getting my code into production, someone actually using it, right? That's real value. And definitely this team was excited. I just think we all had passions for where we wanted it to go. So I think first step was all of us getting on the same page. Are we all talking about the same language? Let's forget about the tools, right? Tools are just tools, right? And we are going to value our collaboration and input from each other over basic tools. Mural, that's what you're seeing in the background. That's what we use to kind of come together virtually, right? Since we physically can't be in the same room. But I got a question. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
I want to ask a question to Landon. One of the things you brought up, Nick, was making sure the team structure was right? Like, do we have the right people on the team to realize this vision? In Landon, I know this was one of your, not necessarily your first software project to lead, but one of the first, right? Like it was not, you've not done many. So coming into it with that perspective, I'm sure it was hard to say you needed anything more than just developers, right? Like having someone who's dedicated just to testing, or just to managing Scrum, or just to drawing pictures. Like that must have been a little bit hard, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where, you have to be comfortable where you provide value and what your strengths are. And then you have no other option, no matter what field you're in, is to build relationships and trust others, right, to lead you along the way. That's where the partnership between Improving and us was critical. We couldn't have done it without Improving, advising us along the way. And so I'll tell you, at certain times we knew what we needed. I have, mentors and people that advise me. At other times, Kevin and Vicky would sit there and brainstorm with us. Sometimes though, Chris and you and Rob, brought up something. Hey, when Nick got on board, we got together and you guys were like, hey, there's some Scrum processes and some facilitation around the development planning, right? The planning on the development that could take place that could actually make us more efficient, save us money, and keep us from these long sprint planning sessions that were happening. And that's where Nick jumps in, right? So to me, you've got to
They
be
were boring.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if there'll ever be a party. We talked about maybe even a better word would be a sprint planning party, but they can be a lot better, right? And they don't have to be these boring, long, arduous meetings. We talked earlier about people don't hate meetings, people hate useless meetings, right? If you're getting a lot of value out of it, nobody's ever come together and said, oh man, I like, for instance, if you go to a party or you have friends over, nobody goes, oh, I hate meetings, right? Why? Because everybody's getting value out of it. Same thing with work too. We can come together and everybody has a place to contribute, and we love it, right? But at times, we really didn't know what we needed. We had to lean on others to tell us, right? And so that was a unique challenge.
So Nick, I want to kind of come back to you because this roadmap and took us, gosh, man, I feel like we were at this for at least like a good week before we were going in and out of it like over the course of like a week to kind of like flesh and dump all of our thoughts across the entire team. But right afterwards, like you end up kind of like guiding us through like some more Scrum practices afterwards. Can you talk a little bit more about what you did and also talk about zombie Scrum? Because I'm pretty sure that's gonna be a fun part the audience might like.
No, definitely. Hey, Nate, hit the next slide. So that was one of the things, like when we talk about, and you go to the next one, I think there's Scrum. Yeah, there you go. So if you look at daily Scrum, I always start with that because, that's always when I come and I say, how is the daily Scrum happening? Are people asleep? People may have, their coffee, Red Bull, whatever it is, but are we talking about the most important thing, which is getting closer, progressing to the sprint goal, which maps back to a product vision? Well, we have a vision, and Landon started producing a sprint goal. So the next question is, well, okay, so is the dev team executing towards that sprint goal? And are we talking about it? So, zombie Scrum, which there's a book out there, you guys can read about it, but are we just going through the motions, right? For the sake of going through the motions by saying, hey, we have to follow a framework. And this is what I like to tell teams and organizations that are adopting over, right? Which is, look, you can make Scrum as fun, as exciting as you want it to be, or it can be as boring, as painful as you want it to be, right? It's your choice. For me, I'd rather have fun, high value, desired outcomes, making users have a great experience about that software that we're producing, and delight our product owner and its stakeholders, right? So it was going back to some of the basics, right? And Eric, you kind of mentioned there was a PowerPoint, and I like short meetings, right? I could have said, hey, let's sit down for 3 hours and do this training. Instead, it's like, hey guys, let's put our hats on, let's go to work, and let me demonstrate for you why these events like Daily Scrum is so important. If we are not talking about blocks, if we're not talking about issues, and if we are not asking for help, then our daily Scrum doesn't need to be that long, right? Our very first things we get there is, hey, I'm blocked, I need help, Eric. Cool. Eric's like, well, I need some final decision on this UX. Landon, are you there? Yeah, I'm here. What do you need it for? Right. So it's a quick daily Scrum, right? It's not a long, hey, everybody go through their daily status update. Let's all hold hands and concentrate and someone take notes on our status update. It's nothing like that, right? This meeting is for the development team, right? It's not
Yeah.
for the product owner and it's not for the scrum master. But how are we executing on that? So
mean-
that was the very first thing that I saw.
And I'm going to say, like, talking from my own personal experience, like that, if there's any big takeaway, like, I mean, I've got multiple takeaways from the whole project, but the biggest one I took away from you, Nick, was when we were doing our one-on-ones, and you told me, it's like, hey, there's no need to like talk about what you did X yesterday and then you're doing Y today. Just what do you accomplish and what are your blockers? And it was like, just keep it short and simple. And I think we cut down like I think we cut down our meetings from going like, I don't know, like it felt like 10 minutes, 15 minutes at worst, sometimes down to like less than 5, sometimes down to like, maybe like a 1-minute day at best, where it's like, well, we're still working. I'm doing this. Okay, let's get back to work.
Well,
Boom.
no, you're correct. And when I first met Landon, we both were saying the same language to each other, which was
Yeah,
laser focus, right?
absolutely.
And Landon has a good analogy. What is it? The Band-Aid burn story. Not so much about laser focus, but helping a team, right? And helping us, I guess, transition to the next challenge. But Landon, can you speak a little bit about the Band-Aid story?
Yeah. So I'll have to remember what the learnings, other than just a funny story about my childhood, were out of this. But we talked about product managers being idea based, and concept based. Like they're a lot more comfortable in that realm. Not that both groups can't do both, but you have a group that's more comfortable in the conceptual realm and another group that tends to be more focused on the execution realm of things. Yeah. So to me, even from being a little kid, I was coming up with business ideas. So I had some pretty silly ones. The one I'm about to tell you is still silly. It's one of the least silly ones I came up with as a kid. But, having empathy for users is a really important place to start, right? A lot of times you can see how successful is this feature or this business idea going to be with how you even came up with the idea in the first place. If it's something you've had trouble with, or people really well you've had trouble with, or if it's a sector that you're really involved in, great one, because you can empathize with the user a lot more. When it's not that it's not going to be a good idea. It's just your assumptions may need to be tested a little bit more thoroughly. But in this case, just seeing my mom cook a lot and get burned, right? I had this idea, we should come up with a Band-Aid for your burns. So the name of it was Burn-Aids, right? So I wrote a letter.
I like it.
Yeah, I wrote a sheet of paper, on a notebook piece of paper, 5 or 6 lines. Was encouraged by my family to send it in to Johnson & Johnson, expecting nothing in return. And one day my family was pretty shocked that I had mail, right? I was 7 years old and somehow I've got a big box being sent to me, and opened it up, and it was a letter from Johnson & Johnson with a ball toy, right, that they had sent me, and just encouraging me in on that, right? So what was cool is, one, in the letter they nicely said, hey, this idea is not patented, so we can't use it. But it was really nicely written, and they encouraged me in that, right? And that was maybe a really formative experience for me, realizing that the idea hadn't been fleshed out. It wasn't taken. I didn't earn any money off of it, but somebody valued it enough to encourage me to come up with more ideas. So I think we can do that on teams. A lot of times I think my role is less to become the person that has the great ideas, and a lot more to facilitate, encourage collaboration ideas. And then after that, recognize good ideas, right? And reward that. And so I notice a lot of times we encourage ideas, but then when somebody mentions an idea, if it doesn't quite work, or if we had the idea first, it's like whack-a-mole, it's like, oh, I already had that idea, or no, that wouldn't work. And it's like, well, on one side, you think you want ideas, but really you just want good ideas. So you really don't want ideas in general, right? So I've had to be really careful, especially with customers, that a lot of times when people mention ideas to us, you don't have to be fake or disingenuous, but maybe it's not important to tell them the difficulties of the idea, or why it might not work, or the fact that another person had already mentioned it, right? There's no reason. What may be a lot more conducive is to do what Johnson & Johnson said. If you have to, hey, here's why we couldn't use your idea, but at least reward them. Hey, thank you, right? Why? Because we want to incentivize that kind of behavior. So while that one idea may not be a game changer, if as a practice, it is a game changer, because then people next time they'll give you more and more ideas. And before you know it, after they give you 100 ideas, a few of them are going to be awesome, right? And they're going to be winners.
That's a good example of an MVP, right? So you incrementally gave them a little bit, and then didn't make any money off of it, but it sure did inspire you to move on.
I'll say, Landon, didn't you create a prototype of that burned aid?
Yeah. So the end story of that is about a year later, I saw something, a cooling patch, right, that you could kind of hold on your skin. And I thought, okay, there's Band-Aids and there's this cooling patch. Now all I have to do is combine the two. I can do that. Even as a 7-year-old, I've got glue sticks and I've got scissors, right? So I told my mom to drive me to Walmart, and my mom still is very patient. She drove me to Walmart. We go to the pharmacy section. I'm looking for the two ingredients to this recipe, the Band-Aids and the burn and cooling patches. And all of a sudden I see it. It's not called Band-Aids, but it's a burn and cool. It's the concept, right? It had already been made. And I remember slightly being a little bummed. Oh, they've already made it, but slightly kind of like, oh, cool. Maybe if I had that idea, that was valuable, even though I didn't get there first, right? Maybe there's some value into that idea. And so, but yeah, that was the end story. And I'm not sure they took my, some people were like, oh, they took your idea. I'm like, probably not, right? But it was cool to kind of experience that in a unique way.
All right, so
I know we were going to pause. I'm curious if there are any questions. Looks like maybe we got one.
Currently, there are no questions in the Q&A section.
Okay, let's tackle this first one from Jordan. Maybe we already went over this one, but are there any assumptions about what you were solving that you made and you later discovered you were wrong, or not problems your customers face? Yeah, man, that is a great, the answer is yes. I'm trying to think of the most prevalent example of this. But there were definitely things that, you think, oh, everybody's going to love this. And, there's two important questions here. One is, are we solving the right problem? And I'm stealing this from influencers in the product management space. This is not original to me. John Cutler on LinkedIn is awesome to follow, but he asked, one, are we solving the right problem? And two, are we solving it at the right time? So I would say that number two one has been a little bit trickier to handle. And that's probably the one I'd highlight for this conversation is, yes, maybe we handled the right problem, but way too soon, right? There's no reason to beef up our organizer site if we're not getting the traction that warrants it yet, right? So there's always room for more efficiency, and there's always room as on everyone in the product trio, from the developer to the scrum master to the UX designer to the product manager, to make sure your teams are answering that question. Why this problem and why now, right? Why this problem and why now, and make your team sick of that question. And so, Jordan, if I think of one specific example, I'll come up with it. I'll mention it later. I can't think of one right now, but just to suffice it to say, those two questions have been really important for us.
So just to jump back to the slide that's on the screen and maybe transition us over to the next topic. This framework is great, and it kind of gives you a starting place. But everyone on the team needs to play their part, and there's got to be some glue that glues it all together. So Nick, can you kind of talk us through what is the human element of this, right? The process makes sense. You could write it down on a sheet of paper, outline it or whatever, but once humans get involved, process is tough to follow, right? So talk us through how does that work?
I think the hardest part, right, is building relationships, because I think a lot of times we forget that we're working with another human being. And now more so than ever, right? We're remote. And so what I tried to do was set an example, and I'll use Eric as an example, calling him up, having video chat, and getting to know Eric, taking some time, right? So we're investing in each other. I would say the team started leaning into trust behaviors. That's what started setting us apart. And now you can go to the next slide. But as we started going, yeah, so it's from Stephen Covey, and it's a part of our ambition from improving is to elevate trust in the IT profession. And as we walk through these behaviors, not only as improvers outside of our clients, but with our community and First United Bank, is working together on each one of these trust behaviors. So my challenge was helping our team lean to it more. So we all start out with an idea or a thought that we have a level of trust. Oh yeah, we trust each other, right? Oh yeah, kind of gloss over it. But then we start learning what these behaviors are. Then the meter starts going up a little bit more. Well, I thought I knew what trust is, but now I know a little bit more. And as we start going through challenges, right? When we start debating on what's priority, or maybe Eric got hit by a developer in the nose. Eric, you're going to have to explain what happened to your nose. Eric's really passionate about his UX design.
Right.
And Chris bopped him on the nose. That's why he has bird nose. That's not what happened. But the thing is, right? We'll right our wrongs, but at the end of the day, our commitment is to our customer, which is or client, the person using the product itself. Showing loyalty to our stakeholders. And I think one of the most important things, if we talk about the release map and roadmap, right, that was creating transparency. Are we all on the same page, right? And then we started confronting reality together. So as I started walking the team members, right, through each of these behaviors, then we started getting into practicing accountability, which goes back, Chris, to your question, which is Scrum framework, right? Are we holding each other accountable at daily Scrum, right? Eric has every right to ask Chris, hey, I thought you were going to do this yesterday. What happened? Or Chris asking Rob Krennick, did you check in the code? Or, asking George, did you check in the back end? Hey, we got 13 PRs that still need to be reviewed, right? These were some of the challenges that we had to face and work through. So as we started leaning into all of these, like keeping your commitments, then we also had to learn to extend trust. Listening first, I think, was probably number one, because when I first came aboard, I think we had to take a step back with Landon, revisit our vision, listen to it, right? And then start leaning into a lot of these trust behaviors moving forward through the Scrum framework.
Nick, I'll say my takeaway on this, because I do think that this is one of the key elements through everything we've talked about, right? The team members and increasing trust. To me, a really big takeaway was, if you were to ask yourself on your product teams, right, or your projects, however this applies to you most, where does your team stand? You could ask it in your personal life too. Where does your team stand when it comes to trust? That's a very, very difficult question to answer, honestly. And we've discussed this, that we thought we were at a really good place. And I think we were. I don't think we were in a negative atmosphere, but we thought we were at a really positive place, but we realized how much room we had to grow when we started improving it. So the big takeaway for me, you don't know how much you trust your team until you improve it or you lose it, right? Where are you at when it comes to trust? Well, improve it or lose it. You choose pick your poison. I think it's a lot better to improve it and then go, wow, I thought we trusted each other a lot. Now we really trust each other. But
Somebody
you don't really
improving,
know
write
until,
that down. That's got to be our new slogan.
yeah, improve it or lose it. I love it. Yeah.
So I know we have to wrap up. We have one question, and I'll go ahead and just pitch it out real quick. It's from Joe. This is, I think, for Landon. Like, are you guys just doing this for the local community or planning this to be its own product and expand it?
Yeah, great question. So we talked about impact over scalability, but scalability is important as well, right? When it comes to technology, this is something that we want it to make a great impact, but then we want it to be, scalable to all these different communities. So that's kind of how justifying it, right? So we have big vision, but we're not afraid to start small. So hopefully that answers that question.
And native or folks helping, if there are no questions, we do have a final challenge to kind of help wrap this up. Okay. All righty. So the one challenge we'll leave with everyone, and then we collaborated on this. How can you help contribute to a product vision? At the same time, leaning into team trust and belonging to your community, right? That's the challenge. If you could think of one way to lean into this, product vision, helping with that, leaning into team trust, and then belonging to your community. Think of one way that you can accomplish that this week.
It's great.
Awesome.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, it's been a
Thank you,
pleasure,
everyone.
guys.
Thank you,
Always
Landon,
love hanging
Eric,
out.
Thanks
and
for
Chris.
joining us.
Yeah, thank you, Landon, Nick, Chris, and Eric. That was a fantastic talk. We're always happy to have you on here. And to everyone on the call, thank you for joining us today. The recording of this session will be available the next business day from our virtual events page at improving.com/virtual-events. Be sure to join us next Wednesday, April 19th, for our next Improving Talks event. We have David O'Hara, president of the Improving Dallas office, and he'll be talking about walking the path, investigating in your people and their growth. Have a great weekend, everyone.